All right, Gordon, today we're talking about your Plumbubble bell.
Yes, the Plumbubble is a rather fanciful design of vertical elements and these very circular bubbly elements. It's rather fantastic. Does not have a story that other than the simple love of these ebullient forms.
Sort of effervescent bubbles floating to the surface, if you will. And that was it in sterling silver. I'm going to take a little ring in the bronze here. So a little bit of a deeper voice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Than the sterling.
And we never know the combinations of the shape and the size and the weight and the metal. That all affects the sound of the bell in the actual production line. So that's the concept that I was playing with.
A little bit of magic happening in the casting process. So
then we took the mold of it. Let's start with the clapper part. Is the simplest kind of molding, so it can give you an idea that the mold is, first of all, always a block of the rubber that I have to break into with a scalpel.
Blindly, right? So you don't know.
Yes, I can't see in this material I know pretty much where the piece is, but I can learn quickly by working at the beginning of the sprue, at the largest part of the sprue, and cutting it down into the mold, freeing that metal piece, which is what is the master that created the negative space that we will inject the wax into. So that's the lay the wax in there, and you can see how this mold opens and frees both the master to get it out of the mold and then accepts the wax in a very similar way to the way the plaster mold, the production mold, casting mold will flow plaster around this wax to be burned out, leaving a similar cavity for the metal to go into.
And so a lot of times people say to sprue on the top of things, and you're sort of going off of spruing on
in this
the
particular
largest
case,
mass,
yeah,
the
because
thickest.
I'm talking about flow. We have to move the wax first inside the mold smoothly and completely. And so that's a ratio of the temperature of the mold, the temperature of the wax, and to create that flow. So the reason I didn't sprue it right to the very end, which would make maybe the most logic, is that I've got a little bead there that I want as a detail. And so I'm taking the sprue to the side of the piece where there is another section where we can file and grind and polish that larger ball instead of the little tiny one that is the detail that I also want to keep. Yeah. So that's the concept in sort of its simplest form. So then that same process, in order to create the bell part, is a more complicated cutting of the mold. The same sprue where that becomes the entrance for the wax or the metal, both. And so I'm cutting it again halfway around, halfway in the middle of the design, or the middle of the mold, in order to keep track of it and to make the mold go back together smoothly.
And you cut your locks in, right?
I've cut the locks.
Here.
Yes.
On either side, on all four sides. And then again, there's this sort of plug that comes out to keep the sound bow and the inside of the bell open.
Yes. So that's a separate piece that pulls out of the mold, actually would pull out with the wax attached. so that we can pull that out and keep the bell part hugged by the two sides of the mold.
While it cools.
Yes.
So you pull out the plug while it's hot.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
and
while it's warmer.
Warmer, so
Yes.
it gives it some flexibility.
Yes.
And so when you cut this mold, this isn't the normal Castaldo that you've been yellow rubber.
No, and
this
I'm not
is
sure that I remember what this material is. It's obviously got a slightly different color. It's got a different texture, and I cut it differently in the core. I mean, in the keys, so that it's not my usual flare for the.
Yeah, your geometric little locks and such.
But it functions.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking time to talk about the Plumbubble.
Sure.
And we'll see you next time.